I guess I should start by explaining a little bit of my background. My family migrated from Mexico to Chicago, from the state of Michoacan, to be precise. I left when I was very young. I was about 4 or 5 years old, so I practically grew up in Chicago. Mm, the only people that stayed behind from our household were my grandparents. A few years later, my grandfather passed away, so I knew by the time I finished high school, I had to go back to Mexico, in the sense that my grandmother wouldn't be alone anymore. She couldn't take care of herself like she used to. She was getting older. She needed someone to be around. But I have to admit though, the first year here in Morelia was very exciting. And you have to take into account that I had not been here for 13 years. I had a little trouble communicating with people at first because my Spanish wasn't that great, and I could hardly write it either. It was just a big culture shock for me. It was just big, a big culture shock. Either way, I managed to get myself in school at the Universidad Michoacana de San Nicolás de Hidalgo as a history major. It was a matter of just getting used to it, and it was difficult. It still is, but I'm trying. It's gotten easier, I have to say that. But overall, my first year here was just mostly about adapting to the city, the people, and traditions, among other things. It was a very different feeling. I mean, coming from a city like Chicago, and it's very industrialized, and then just getting to Morelia, it's a very small city, not a lot of people, and it's just a whole different context. And I did miss my family, but curiosity and to some extent freedom kept me going without giving it too much thought. And that overall was my first year here. It was about exploring, seeing things in a very different manner, and learning to adapt. My second year here was a little bit of lo mismo as the previous year. I had gotten to know the city better, like how to get around and all that good stuff. It's a small city, so it started making sense after visiting various places, connecting things. I guess I no longer felt as the outsider, or la pocha, as they call us here. Or not as strongly, at least. I suppose I was still in the process of being accepted. Creo que mi identidad was also changing. I was becoming part of something bigger, something that I could understand, but at the same time I felt I was getting more lost. In school, I was still struggling some, but my Spanish was improving. Although I have to say that overall, I was still excited about being here. But I think that I did started to get a feel or notice a little more that I missed my familia. As months passed, I couldn't celebrate the holidays with them, and that's when it started getting a little difficult for me. El peso de la distancia was becoming a lot more evident. Also, one of the more important events that happened during this year was my relationship with my girlfriend. I think she was one of the major reasons why I kept very close ties with home. When she came to visit, I realized that there was so much out there at stake, that this just wasn't me coming to visit or studying abroad in Morelia. I had a home to go back to. Ya para este tercer año, I was pretty much settled here. I had established close friendships. I knew my way around. Basically, the city made sense. It wasn't as confusing as it was before. I had gotten an idea of what it was to be here, what it meant to be here, lo que era mexicano, la vida cotidiana mexicana. Por lo mismo pensé que por fin había entrado en ambiente. My accent wasn't as noticeable. My biggest worry was school and my thesis. Encontrar un tema de tesis que me interesara, pero que al mismo tiempo me pudiera abrir las puertas. And that's why I chose the Mexican community in Chicago. Desde ahí, creo que fue el primer intento, o el comienzo para regresar. As I had mentioned before, distance can be quite overwhelming. Era más difícil estar sin mi familia y mi pareja. Y a pesar de todo, I felt trapped. I felt like I belonged here, but I was still trapped. And the holidays, once again, were a constant reminder of how alone I was here after all. Siendo mi cuarto año aquí, pues he aprendido mucho de mi persona. Ha sido una experiencia de vida muy completa para mi edad. Sé lo que es la libertad, pero al mismo tiempo la soledad. He descubierto gran parte de mi identidad, lo que es ser de ambos lados, que no es solo cuestión de papeles o de gobiernos, son varios factores que se atribuyen a nuestra complejidad. Es por ello que no es fácil ni de un lado ni de otro entender lo que somos, ni mucho menos es algo fácil entender lo que somos. Por otro lado, la belleza de Morelia nunca para de asombrarme, en especial el centro histórico. Cuando camino por sus calles, ver mi alrededor. Sin embargo, no es suficiente para mantenerme aquí. Ya no. Extraño la gran ciudad cosmopolita en la que viví. Creo que todo se me está convirtiendo más tedioso. El peso de los años está más presente que nunca. Sigo con mi tesis en espera que me abra las puertas para un día poder regresar.